Pine Hollow, a quaint town that seems to have been plucked straight out of a storybook. Its charm lies in its simplicity, a place where time appears to stand still, a town untouched by time. The vintage town square with its cobblestone streets and old-fashioned storefronts evokes a sense of nostalgia. It's a place where everyone knows everyone, and the sense of community is strong. Nestled amongst the whispering pines of New England, it lived up to its name. The town is surrounded by dense forests, the tall pine trees standing like silent sentinels, guarding the peace and tranquility of Pine Hollow. Life moved at a slower pace here. People took the time to enjoy the little things, like a leisurely stroll down Main Street or a chat with a neighbor over a cup of coffee. It was a place where the hustle and bustle of the modern world felt a million miles away. The air, crisp and cool, carried the scent of pine needles and wood smoke. It was a scent that signaled the changing seasons, a reminder of the natural beauty that surrounded the town. September arrived, painting the trees in fiery hues of gold and crimson. The vibrant colors of autumn brought a sense of renewal and change. But something was different this year, a subtle shift that was hard to pinpoint. The days, usually long and bright, were shrinking. The sun seemed to set a little earlier each day, casting a golden glow over the town before dipping below the horizon. The sun began to dip below the horizon earlier, casting long, ominous shadows across the town. These shadows seemed to stretch and grow, creating an eerie atmosphere that was hard to ignore. An unsettling quiet settled over Pine Hollow. The once bustling streets were now eerily silent, as if the town itself was holding its breath. A silence that felt heavier, deeper than the usual stillness of a small town. It was a silence that seemed to seep into every corner, every crevice, leaving an uneasy feeling in its wake. Something was amiss, a subtle shift in the atmosphere that sent chills down the spines of its inhabitants. The people of Pine Hollow couldn't quite put their finger on it, but they knew that something had changed. The town, once a haven of peace and tranquility, now felt different, as if it was on the brink of something unknown.
The early sunsets gnawed at me. They felt unnatural, wrong. It was as if the very fabric of time was being tampered with, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister was at play. The sky, once a comforting blanket of twilight, now seemed to mock me with its premature darkness.
Sheriff Jack Mitchell, a man hardened by years of service, felt it too. His instincts, honed by decades of dealing with the unexpected, were screaming at him that something was amiss. He had faced down criminals, natural disasters, and the occasional wild animal, but this was different. This was an enemy he couldn't see, couldn't touch. He had lived in Pine Hollow his entire life. The town was more than just a place to him. It was a living, breathing entity. He knew every nook and cranny, every secret and story. The people here were his family, and the land was his home. The sudden change in the sunsets felt like a betrayal, as if the town itself was warning him of impending doom. He knew the rhythm of the town, the ebb and flow of the seasons. Spring brought new life, summer brought warmth and growth, autumn brought a harvest of memories, and winter brought a quiet, reflective stillness. But now the seasons seemed to blur together, the natural order disrupted by the early encroaching darkness.
I found myself standing on the porch of the sheriff's station more often, squinting at the western sky as the sun dipped below the horizon. Each evening I hoped to find some clue, some sign that would explain the unsettling phenomenon. But all I saw was the sun sinking faster and faster, as if it were being pulled down by an invisible hand.
Each night the darkness seemed to arrive earlier, spreading like a stain across the sky. It was a creeping, insidious thing, swallowing the light and leaving behind a void that felt almost tangible. The stars, once a comforting presence, now seemed distant and cold, mere pinpricks in an ever-growing sea of black. It was as if the light itself was being consumed, devoured by something unseen. The sunsets, once a daily spectacle of color and beauty, had become a grim reminder of the encroaching darkness. The vibrant hues of orange and pink were now tinged with an eerie, unnatural shade, as if the sky itself was sick. A knot of unease tightened in Jack's gut. He had always trusted his instincts, and they were telling him that this was no ordinary change in the weather. There was a malevolent force at work, something that defied explanation. He felt a responsibility to protect his town, but how could he fight an enemy he couldn't even see? He had dismissed it as fatigue at first, but the feeling persisted, growing stronger with each passing day. The weight of his duty pressed heavily on his shoulders, and the sleepless nights only added to his weariness. Yet he knew he couldn't ignore the signs. Something was coming, and he had to be ready. The unsettling dusk was just the beginning. The townsfolk felt it too. Whispers of the unusual sunsets turned into hushed conversations. Children grew afraid of the dark, clinging to their parents as shadows lengthened. Then came the sightings, fleeting glimpses of strange creatures lurking in the woods, dark, misshapen things that moved with an unnatural fluidity.
I saw something dark moving in the woods.
It didn't look like any animal I know. It was terrifying.
A chill settled over Pine Hollow, a fear that seeped into the very bones of the town. The once peaceful community was now gripped by an invisible terror, the source of which remained shrouded in the encroaching darkness. The changes began subtly, almost imperceptibly at first. It was as if a shadow had passed over the town, leaving behind a faint, unsettling residue. A shift in the eyes of the townsfolk, a flicker of something cold and alien. Their once warm and familiar gazes now held a strange, distant quality, as if they were looking through you rather than at you. Their smile seemed strained, their laughter hollow. The joy that once filled the town square was replaced by an eerie, forced mirth that sent shivers down the spine of anyone who noticed. They moved with a strange stiffness, their bodies contorting at odd angles. It was as if they were marionettes, controlled by unseen strings, their movements jerky and unnatural.
Animals, too, began to exhibit strange behaviors. The once predictable patterns of wildlife were disrupted, their actions erratic and inexplicable. Birds flew erratically, their songs replaced with harsh, discordant cries. The melodies that once heralded the dawn now sounded like warnings, echoing through the quiet streets.
Deer stumbled through the woods, their eyes glowing an unnatural yellow in the fading light. It was as if the forest itself had become a place of nightmares, the creatures within it twisted by some unseen force.
The transformation was slow, insidious. It crept into every corner of Pine Hollow, altering the very fabric of the town. Day by day, the familiar became strange. The ordinary became extraordinary in the most unsettling ways. It started with subtle shifts in behavior, barely noticeable at first. A nervous glance here, a hesitant step there. But soon, these small changes began to accumulate, creating a tapestry of unease that blanketed the town. But as the days grew shorter and the darkness deepened, the changes became more pronounced, more grotesque. The sun seemed reluctant to rise, casting long shadows that stretched across the town, hiding secrets in their depths. Pine Hollow was becoming a town of strangers, a twisted reflection of its former self. The once vibrant community now felt like a ghost town, its streets echoing with the whispers of what once was. The transformation was complete, and Pine Hollow would never be the same again.
The streets were eerily deserted. The houses, usually glowing with warm light, were dark, the curtains drawn tight. The only sound was the frantic beat of his own heart. Jack's blood ran cold. Sarah was Martha's daughter, a sweet girl of 10 with a fondness for fairy tales. He grabbed his coat and raced out into the night. "Sheriff, you gotta come quick. It's Sarah. She's not right." The phone on Jack's desk jangled, shattering the silence of the station. It was Martha, the town librarian, her voice frantic and laced with terror.
He found Martha cowering in the corner of her living room, her eyes wide with terror. In the center of the room stood Sarah, but something was wrong. Her skin was deathly pale, her eyes glowing with an eerie internal light. Her jaw was unhinged, stretched wide in a silent scream.
And then, from the shadows behind Sarah, it emerged. A creature of pure darkness, its form shifting and swirling like smoke, its eyes two burning embers of hate fixed on Jack.
Time seemed to stop. Jack stood frozen, caught between the world he knew and the nightmare unfolding before his eyes. The creature slithered towards him, its silence more terrifying than any roar. Jack never fired his gun. He knew in that moment that it wouldn't matter. This was a force beyond bullets and badges. This was something ancient, something evil. He watched in horror as the creature enveloped Sarah, her screams swallowed by the darkness.
Then with a final chilling glance in my direction, it vanished into the shadows, taking Sarah and the last vestiges of light with it.
The phone slipped from Jack's grasp, clattering to the floor. He was alone. Pine Hollow, the town he had sworn to protect, was gone, swallowed by the encroaching darkness. And he, the sheriff, was the only one left to face the endless night.